Welcome to the Gorgeous Gray podcast. I am Nicole Scott, your host, registered holistic nutritionist, rest mindset coach, author of the Gorgeous Gray movement, and the co-creator of the Menopause Reset program. In this podcast, we have real conversations about aging as a woman and all the pressure and uncertainty we feel as we head into menopause and beyond. Let's face it, aging is not an easy conversation to have. But I say it's time to talk about the messy middle and offer hope when we feel like giving up on ourselves. Let's talk about our fears around gray hair, our muffin tops, and even our dry, itchy vaginas and everything in between. I will help you reconnect to your feminine energy and offer real solutions from experts in their field to navigate aging as a woman. I believe we, as women, deserve to shine even brighter in this next chapter of life. So with a sense of humor and a lot of compassion, let's dive into these vulnerable conversations. Hello, my beautiful women. Welcome to the next episode from the Gorgeous Gray podcast. We have Dawnolyn from the Toronto area joining us today. Thank you for being here, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
So of course, I bring like my favorite people. I've been following Lori now for a while on Instagram. She is a commercial model. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love everything about you being silver, gray, and that modeling agents are actually looking for women with gray. And we're going to dive in there in a sec. I'm so excited about that. But I am just, the conversation today and what you can expect from the conversation are threefold. We're going to go into the conversation about Lori as a silver sister. We're going to dive in about her modeling career and how they're taking her just as she is. Oh, I can't wait to get into that conversation. And then the third conversation is a conversation that I always love to dive in because I'm in it, is menopause. And what happened, what are you doing, that type of stuff. So let's start with the conversation around your story. Let's dive in. When did you start to go gray? Why did you go gray? And how did you transition? Let's go there.
Silver Sisters origin story, my favorite. I love hearing people's stories. So I actually noticed my first gray hairs when I was 25 and pregnant with my first son. And I started coloring my hair right away. And for years, I didn't know how gray I was, but I did know that every 3 or 4 weeks, I'd pull my hair back into a ponytail. I'd see all those little silvers at my temples, but I always thought, I don't mind how that looks. I would talk to different hairdressers and they always said, don't go gray. You're too young. I was probably in my mid-30s at the time. Yeah. But I just had this feeling that it was going to look great if I did it, at least to my liking. Had the conversation with my husband. He was 100% supportive. He's always been a big fan of me looking natural. Like he much prefers me without makeup to makeup. And so when I turned 42, I went to a hairdresser who was very supportive of the idea. She said, here's what we're going to do. It's January right now. So what I want you to do is just go the next month without coloring, come back and see me just so we can assess where you're at. We're not going to make any decisions today. Let's just see where you're at. So I went back and there was enough gray coming through that she had a feel for, you've got a beautiful streak right here and the back is still about 80% dark. And, this is what your pattern looks like. Yeah. So she said, okay, we're not going to do anything else at this moment. It is now February. Your hair grows fastest in the spring and in the summer. Yeah. So over the next few months, I want you to still color, use a box color. Yeah. And she took me gradually from where I was probably a 2. And then she said, I want you to go grab a 3. And for the next couple of weeks, because I was coloring every week, right. Next couple of times, do a 2, 3, and then work yourself up to a 3, then go by a 4 and work yourself up to a 3, 4 to a 4. And that way, when spring rolled around, there was enough of a demarcation because my gray was getting, or I guess what I was coloring was getting lighter, that she said, now the heat of summer is going to take over. It's going to bleach you out. It's going to make things that much better instead of that stark line of demarcation. And we're going to just take it from there. And then she said, how short are you willing to go? Because your transition will go faster if you're short. And I said, take me to a pixie. So that's what we did. Now, in hindsight, Grombre wasn't a thing yet. Instagram wasn't even a thing yet. This was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So had I known of the resources that would be available to women today, my decision 8 years ago might have been different. I might have just kept my hair long and just let it Grombre out beautifully. But a pixie was ultimately what I decided to do. And it took about 5 months. That's it.
Wow, and I love how you're saying, you went ahead of your time, right? Because there was no movement, there was no nothing, you were just on your own. So what was that like with no Silver Sisters behind you? You were like a lone wolf probably in your community, maybe at work. What were some of the backlash that you might have got that you had to deal with?
Do you know, honestly, I can I can honestly say in the last 8 years, I've had one negative comment that was made when I was first starting out. And it was from a man, not my husband, who had an opinion, which I graciously thanked him for and walked away. And I've never had anyone say anything negative to me ever since. But I will say this, there was no Instagram, or at least I wasn't on it, but there was Pinterest. And
Oh.
there were some, and they were all primarily models. So I did have some idea of what it was going to look like. And every time I wanted to reach for the dye bottle, I just zipped onto Pinterest and took a look and said, nope, not today. Today, we are going to still be gray. Tomorrow, we will fight that battle. But for today, let's keep going.
Awesome. Well, it looks so great. You're such a natural. It just fits with your skin tone, and I love your color pattern. It's just beautiful. I think that's going to lead us to the next conversation, which is you're now a commercial model and you have gray hair. How did that even happen? Because I think even 5 years ago, we would think if you're gray hair, there's no way you'll ever get into modeling.
Right. It's funny because I actually did a lot of print modeling in my early 20s. When I lived in Winnipeg, it was before fax machines. And so they would create all of the flyers, and it was equal distance to ship the flyers out to the West Coast as it was to the East Coast. So there was quite a good industry out there. So I had some experience with modeling, turned 22, started my family, and decided I was putting that life behind me. And when I was about 45, I was approached by an agent who works out of the Toronto market. And she said, people are clamoring to see gray hair in commercials. And she says, my casting directors are coming up to me all the time and asking if I have any silver or gray haired women in my roster. And she says, I don't have anybody in your age category. Would you be interested in modeling? And I said, well, I'm familiar with the print world. And she goes, well, there's some print, but she says, primarily it's going to be commercials. I've never done any acting or anything before. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And she said, if you come in and, sign with me, I can probably get you in and out of Toronto every week. And, she was not wrong. I can't tell you how many auditions call for women anywhere between 45 and 60. And I don't mind if people think I'm a little bit older than I am, or if they want to throw me in as that dark horse for maybe a teenage mom at 45 with gray hair. It's, hey, I'm versatile, whatever you want.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit more about your experience. I'd written down here, you had said they're taking you as you are, which I think is so awesome. You probably say I'm a size 10 model with no Botox, no filler. I follow you. I love all the shoots. That's pretty impressive. I mean, it's, when I think of modeling, we think of one size and they got to be this tall and this thin. And I love, like, obviously your agent is looking for real women. Is times a changing?
Well, more so, my agent is looking for real women, but so are casting directors and so are clients, which is amazing. I was that 5'9", 120-pound model in my 20s, and you could not pay me to go back to being 120 pounds. My body wouldn't do it. I've had children, but I am so much happier as I am now. And it's funny because I've had conversations with my agent on occasion, and I'll say, hey, do you think I need to lose 10 pounds? And she keeps saying, no, just you're doing what you need to do. Don't worry about it. And last year I had an intimates company reach out to me, Elita Intimates, and I did an underwear shoot at 48. size 10. And it was so empowering. And they chose me because they knew what I looked like already. There was no expectations that I was coming in there with, a size 4 frame. They knew what they were getting, and that's what they were looking for.
I love it. So tell us a little bit more about your experience. Are you having fun right now, like in your journey of commercial modeling? Like here you are, like gray hair, like it's almost like you made a decision and then the door just opened up to a whole new path for you. Can you tell us a little bit about like that transition and if you're having fun or not?
Oh, it's so much fun. And I have to say, I was on location a few weeks ago, and the client, it's still an NDA, but there were 4 of us women, all in our 50s. We all got to spend the day at the lake, hanging out, having fun, getting to know each other. We weren't mic'd up, so we were having some intimate conversations about menopause and aging. And that was the entire gist of the commercial. Was they just wanted 4 friends who were all in their early 50s just hanging out. And how cool is that?
That is amazing.
Yeah,
So if there's a woman that's listening or watching and they're sitting on the fence about like this gray and should I or shouldn't I? I'm scared. I'm worried about what people will judge me. Maybe it will impact my job. What's your advice for the women that are not sure if they're ready?
It's a personal decision. I don't know about you, but how many of the women that we meet on Instagram ultimately decide to go back to coloring? I've seen it happen a few times, not many, but a few times. And that's okay too, right? It is such a personal choice. And not everybody feels their gray hair suits them, and that's okay. Some people feel like it does make them feel older. And if that's happening, it's okay to color again. I don't think we are so set in something that once we decide to go gray, we must go gray. Our feelings evolve just like we evolve. So that's okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's simple. It's simple advice, which is, I even know for me, when I was thinking about the decision, the same thing. People would say, if you don't like it, Nicole, you can always go back to whatever color you want, right? And I was like, okay, it almost gave me a peace. It's like, oh, okay, that's true, right? It's true. So you just kind of dive in and see if you're going to like it, right?
The only thing I would say though is give yourself an honest chance, because I don't think you can truly know what it's going to look like until you are done transitioning. Because when you do have, if you decide to go grombre, even maybe pull your hair back in a ponytail, it'll give you an idea. But while you've still got color in your hair, you won't truly know what the end result's going to look like.
Yeah, for sure. I was at this women's network this past week, and I had met 2 beautiful women sitting at my table that were both gray. And I asked them about like their transition, and they were about the same, like 4 years for me. And the one lady's like, I'm going to show you what I did. And she actually bought a gray wig. And so when she would go out to the world, she would just put her gray wig on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so brilliant. Yeah.
I have a friend who did that last year. It was such a great idea.
Yeah, so that is an option, which I haven't really talked a lot about on my channel, is thinking about buying a gray wig and going instantly, and then you don't have to worry about damaging your hair.
That's brilliant, actually. But there's so many ways to do it, right? I mean, you can ombre, you can go into a pixie, you can use a wig, whatever works for you. And if it ultimately doesn't end up working for you, that's okay.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's dive into this big conversation about menopause. My first question to you, Lori, is, I know you're menopause. Were you educated enough to get prepared for the transition, do you feel?
Yes and no. There are a lot of amazing resources, even, Instagram, internet, that my doctor, great resources. My special twist is that I had an endometrial ablation done about 5 or 6 years ago. So I haven't actually had a cycle in about that long. Are you familiar with the concept?
Yeah, maybe just explain it to our audience. Yeah.
So for anybody who's not familiar, I was having excessive bleeding, very heavy periods. They were lasting about 12 days, and I was getting them about every 20 days. So I was losing a lot of iron, losing a lot of blood. And so my doctor opted to do, rather than hysterectomy, an endometrial ablation, which is a general anesthetic procedure where they just scar your uterine lining. They basically burn it. Now you have to be quite confident you're done in your childbearing years, because it's not reversible and you can't get or shouldn't be able to get pregnant after. So I had that done, which was a huge life changer for me in a very positive way. The only downfalls to that is there are some types of cancer that I could get that I wouldn't be able to predict, because bleeding might be a predictor of that type of cancer. And also, it's really hard to know if I'm in menopause or not. So I go in for blood work annually to test my estrogen levels. So it was only through the blood work last year that my doctor said, yeah, you are fully on menopause right now.
Right. And so once, you kind of hit menopause, what was your body going through? So when your estrogen dropped, how did that feel in your body?
Oh, I started losing hair. My skin was dry. My nails were breaking. My libido was tanked. And I just would wake up some days just feeling ugh. And if you know me, you'll know that a bad day for me is probably a 7 out of 10 on the happiness scale. Like I'm usually like a solid 8 or 9. And there were days that I was waking up and I just did not feel like myself. And so I went into my doctor and I just said, oh, can we look at some hormone replacement therapy? And he very kindly suggested that was a great idea. And it's been a game changer. I never knew that just a little bit of estrogen could make such a huge difference.
Awesome. So have you had to play around with it a little bit, or you're just kind of like there was one dose and it worked for you? Because I know I hear sometimes you can play the game a little bit, oh, too much, not enough. And then do you track it a little bit to make sure you're in the zone? What does your doctor do for you?
You know what? Actually, I've only been on it for a couple of months. So my follow-up appointment is next month, I believe.
Okay.
But he's put me on an estrogen progesterone combo. And so far, so good. It seems to be doing all of the things that I need it to do. Probably within 2 weeks, I could feel the difference in my skin texture. My skin just felt soft and luminous again. And yeah, that's when I knew that things were starting to turn around a bit.
That's great. And are you taking it as a cream?
No, I'm taking an oral dose every morning.
Oral. Yeah, every morning. That's great. So 2 months starting to feel, and I know I've got a lot of books I've been reading about it. I've been interviewing a lot of women, and it's just neat to hear our stories, right? Because we're all different. It's like a puzzle. Some women aren't comfortable with hormone therapy, maybe based on a history. You're going to definitely make sure you're talking with your doctor to make sure based on history that they're feeling comfortable with it, because some women should not be on it based on certain markers and stuff. Right. So I'm glad that, you're feeling good. That's incredible. And, I want to definitely give women hope that there are many different solutions, in regards to this is just one of them, but I am glad. So you're feeling like yourself again.
Oh, amazing. I did not know what I was missing until I started to take it and realize that I was coming back I was blooming again, basically.
Right. And here's the thing with so many women, do you find and I know you're talking probably a lot with women kind of in menopause, is a lot of women are suffering. Do you hear that, friends or people of your age, or they're not feeling that great?
They're not feeling that great. A lot of them are starting to develop, weight gain and just some lethargic tendencies and just not feeling like themselves, and there isn't a need for that. I mean, hormone replacement therapy might not be the end all cure. There's so many things that doctors can talk to you about.
Yes, absolutely. So there's the message, women. Lori's a great example where she kind of took her health by the reins and said, I do not like the way that I feel. She trusts her doctor, getting some good advice from her doctor, and she's exploring hormone therapy, and it's working for her, and it worked very quickly. So I do know there's a lot of women that are scared of hormone therapy. So I always say, if that's not the avenue that you want to go and your doctor doesn't have any other tools in the toolkit, I would say then find a health professional that can offer other solutions other than hormone therapy. And you can go functional medicine, you can go naturopathic doctor, there's functional practitioners, and like there's a lot of options out there. So I'm lucky enough that I found a medical doctor that is a hormone doctor. She's female and she's been specializing in hormone therapy for many years, but she does bioidentical. That is what her comfort level is actually bioidentical. So I'm in the same range as you, Lori, as I'm playing with bioidentical right now, and we're kind of tweaking it a little bit here and tweaking it there, but just very quickly in about a month of using some cream, I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, there's the Nicole I was hunting for, because it's easy to really get in a place where you don't feel like yourself. And it's almost like, this is midlife. This is how I feel. This is midlife. And if this is how I'm going to feel for the next 50 years, I don't know if I want to be around.
That's exactly right. I just kept looking, going, I'm just turning 50 in December. And I kept thinking, if this is how things are right now, what the heck's 60 and 70 going to look like? So yeah, so grateful to have found something that's going to work for the next little while.
So
Absolutely.
good. Now, when I see you on Instagram, you're always glowing and happy. And obviously you do a lot of probably mind, body, spirit. Tell us some of your secrets of how at the age of 50, you mentioned hormone therapy. So that's working for you. You're kind of getting your mojo back, but you obviously are doing other things to shine that bright. So I'd love to hear just some of the other things in your healthy lifestyle that you do to, just be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. I always say that I am happiest if I can catch the sunrise. So I am outdoors every morning. It's pretty easy right now because the sun's not rising till about 7:15, but I am usually up at 5. I try to do about a 15-minute meditation just in bed, nothing fancy, just lay there and set some good intentions for the day. And then I get up and I go for a walk, and that walk can be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And I know not everybody has that luxury, but it sets me up for success. And it also just, if I can get out there first thing in the morning, I've done one good thing for myself, and the rest of the day tends to domino in that direction. The days that I don't get out, when it's, bad weather, or I just, for whatever reason, need to sleep in, I do know that my days are not as successful, just in general. It's psychological, and I realize that, but I love being outdoors. I grew up in northern Manitoba, so even in the winter, I might be the only one out there when it's -25, but I'm used to the weather and it doesn't bother me. I dress for it, and I go snowshoeing or go out for a walk, head to the lake, and even just catch the sound of the waves. It makes such a difference for me. So that's the first thing that I do.
Okay.
I also, and I know from listening to your podcasts, you're a big proponent of this, but I drink half of my weight in ounces of water. I don't know how to put that. Is that the best way to phrase that?
Yeah.
It makes it sound like a whole lot of water.
Half your weight in ounces. Yeah. So if you're 150, so 75 ounces of water.
Great example. Exactly. So I do that as well. And I find that it helps to keep my mood elevated throughout the day. It does all kinds of amazing things for our skin and our bodies. Another thing that I do, not so much since the pandemic, but my husband and I used to use a local hot yoga class as our date night. And we would go 2 or 3 nights a week to hot yoga together. And I still miss that. I'm not comfortable getting back into that space yet, but the sweat that we would get from going to those classes, energy levels aside, it just would make my skin feel so good. So I do try to replicate that by steaming a couple of times a week, my face, my body, whatever I can steam, I do it. And that makes a huge difference too.
That's so great. You're one of the first people that commented on my Insta reel the other day when I showed you that I did a yoni steam. What do you think of that? You did some research?
Can you explain more? But I'm going to leave that to the expert who's done one.
Well, it was so funny.
Nicole.
Oh, funny. So if you guys go to my Instagram, you will see that I did a little reel to show you what a yoni steam is. So yoni is another name for vagina. And so it's like a vagina, a V steam. And so Thursday or it was Friday, and I went to this beautiful spa in my town, and she knows how open I am about just any topic. And it was so sweet. She's like, "Oh, I have a surprise for you. You're gonna love it." So I had no idea what surprise it was going to be. She's just kind of like does whatever therapy she wants. So I did some like suction cup on the back, and I got like a nice facial, and she goes, "Okay, we're going to go into the detox room." And I'm like, "Okay, the detox room."
Sounds good.
So we walk in, and there's these like two little almost small round benches. Anyways, long story short, she's like, "I'm giving you a yoni steam." And I'm like, "I don't know what a yoni steam is, but it sounds good to me." And then she explained that it's actually a steam for our vagina. And she made this concoction of herbs like rosemary and rose petals and stuff. And it's connected, and you sit on this little like round, it almost looks like a wine, what do you call it? Where you do the barrel, like a wine barrel, and you sit down. Anyways, 20 minutes, and she also had a yoni, what did she have? A meditation all about your vagina. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how perfect. And you sit there for 20 minutes. I did a meditation. It was beautiful about our sacred, spot. And just that sacred spot that sometimes we're not connected. Most women are disconnected to that sacred spot, or, how we love it or how we treat it. And then I started to Google it after and research it, and like that this is a tradition for many different cultures, is having a yoni, especially after giving birth or having your period. And there's many, many health benefits. So I loved it that you were one of the first to comment, and then you said you were on researching it. So when you say about like sweating and doing steams, I'm like, oh, we have to talk about the yoni. So if you're listening to this, woman, just yoni steam and see if there is,
Y-O-N-I, right?
yeah, YONI. Go check it out and see and try it. Like if you're the type of person like me, I will try anything once, most anything. And it was beautiful. And so yeah, even my daughter was like with me, and I said she couldn't because she had her period, so she couldn't do it. So but she was open to it, and she's 19. She's like, "Oh, I would have tried it if I could, Mom." So anyways, it's teaching our daughters to take care of their sacred spot too. So kind of cool.
Exactly.
So anyways, you were talking about the yoga and the steaming and the walking and others, and water. Anything else?
So I think you mentioned earlier, I don't do Botox or fillers. Now I have tried Botox in the past a few years ago. It wasn't for me because I couldn't express. And as a commercial model, if you can't go, wow, or you're not going to get very far. So no Botox for me. So instead, what I do is microneedling, and I go in for 3 to 4 sessions a year. And I find that it really just helps to regenerate collagen, and it leaves my skin feeling great about 3 or 4 days after it's done. It does get pretty dry at the beginning. And then at night, a little bit of retinol. But another model friend of mine, Tara O'Hara from the States, she recommended using cold pressed sesame oil as a night cream. And so that's what I use. It has to be cold pressed, has to be like the yellow, not the, don't get the, what am I trying to say? I want to say burnt. Burnt's not the word.
Right, like the processed, right? The processed oil that's been heated. Yeah.
Exactly. So I put just a little bit on my face at night, and boy, it has some great qualities to it that seem to reduce redness, acne, and it just, especially in the winter months, it really hydrates. It's nice.
Great. I've never tried that on my skin. I'm gonna have to. Do you have a brand that you love?
I do. I can't think of what it's called, but I do get it at Loblaws, just in their organic section.
Perfect.
I'll put the name of it for you for later.
That sounds great. And any other tips that you want to share before we close off?
No, for my gray hair, I'm quite lucky right now that I don't have to wash it every day. So I do use a dry shampoo on it whenever possible, throw it into a ponytail, but I do try not to wash it more than twice a week. Typically my rule of thumb is if I have an audition that I need to do a self-tape for, then I wash my hair. Otherwise it's going to be dry shampooed and thrown into a ponytail. And that does seem to keep it from getting yellow and from drying out. But
okay.
it was always great.
So good. Well, Lori, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were able to share your gray hair story with us. I love that you were able to tell a little bit of your journey about commercial modeling. And I love the message of them accepting, you for who you are. And that's a huge message to women, right? Show up as you are. And, you could have a, modeling career. And then I just love how you shared about your menopause journey and how you're feeling really good in menopause and I guess embracing this new transition. I guess if we were to close off and, you're right in the smack of 100, and this is, midlife. I researched that the oldest woman in the US right now is 116 years old. So let's say you get to even to 116, that would be 50, 60, 66 more years. Tell me about your excitement about the next 50 plus for you.
Well, as I was a military, well, I still am a military spouse, but I was raising kids for so many years with my spouse, gone here, there, and everywhere, that I'm just finding in the last couple of years, now that my kids are somewhat launched and doing their own thing, that this is now time for me to do things, to experiment, to take some risks and adventures. And I am really excited for the next 25, 30 years. I have no plans in slowing down. I am excited about aging. I know a lot of women are scared, but I really think that we are lucky that we are able to age. It's way better than the alternative. And I am excited to see what adventures there are, advances there are in the medical world. And I think it'd be amazing if we could all go into our 80s with some vitality. How cool would that be, right? To have 80 great years on this earth.
Amazing. Yeah, I think because the average is around that early 80s, right? So, some go beyond, which is great. So maybe with new technology and the level of education about learning how to take care of yourself, women, as we get into this menopause, is that there's two paths. I find for women, as they're choosing this path and kind of succumbing to this is as good as it gets, or there's the path that Lori and I are choosing is no, we're going to choose to live those beautiful next 20, 30 years with, strength, empowerment, dreaming. And I am so, my message for women is that this midlife transition can be awesome and beautiful. And I just want to make sure that women, as we get older, that they're not scared of this transitional years, right? I'm just like you, Lori. I'm kind of launching my girls as well too. And I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm just oh my gosh, I've got all this time. I'm volleyball tonight, and I'm wrapping up my third year of golfing with some amazing women. And I just bought a place in Mexico because I can. So part-time in Mexico, let's just go have fun.
That's on my list.
So good.
I was excited to drive by the new pickleball facility the other day. I was like, oh, maybe I'll take up pickleball, but I like your idea of a house in Mexico better.
Right? Why not, right? Yeah, you can come down and visit me, Lori, and there's pickleball there. I got to learn that sport. I haven't learned it yet, but I think that's a fun sport. Well, thank you so much, Lori, for tuning in with this beautiful podcast and the message of just embracing your age, embracing this new transition, and just having fun, right? Having fun with life. Follow her on Instagram. I will drop all the information down below so that you can follow this lighthouse and all the beautiful stuff that she's doing. Thanks, Lori.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for putting this out into the world. I love your podcast.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If this message landed for you, make sure to leave a review and tag me, Nicole Scott at Gorgeous Gray Movement, and make sure to share with your friends. You can head over to my free Facebook community, Gorgeous Gray Movement, or subscribe to my YouTube channel for more inspiring interviews. If you are still struggling and need additional support, you can take a look at my website, nicolescott.ca, and learn more about my new Menopause Reset program that I'm so excited for. Until next time, ladies, be well and own your sparkle.